This is not anxiety, this is the signal. And 2026 is when it gets impossible to ignore. That pressure in your chest is not confusion, it is recognition. That restlessness is not damage. It is memory trying to return. And if you feel it, you are already inside the transmission. Some people can still live inside the surface, some can't. Some people can still sleep through the lie. Some already felt it crack. Figure out which one you are before this goes any further. Something is off. Not just politically, not just psychologically, cosmically. Wrong at the level of the world itself. And if you're one of those people, this is not content for you. This is a summons. Something buried for nearly 2,000 years is surfacing again. Not revived, not rebranded, surfacing, because buried things do not stay dead forever. I'm talking about an older transmission, stranger, harsher, less merciful. The kind of message that does not comfort your map of reality. It breaks it. And at the center of it is the claim they buried hardest. 2026 is not random. 2026 is the threshold, not the end. The opening. Before we go further, subscribe only if you already know this is not casual listening. This is not background noise. This is separation. It separates the curious from the claimed. The ones who scroll past from the ones who were meant to hear it. This is not a theory. It is a recognition event. To understand why 2026 matters, you have to go back before religion became branding, before salvation became something sold from the outside in, back to the hidden streams of the 2nd century, Egypt, Syria, desert circles, private teachings, texts copied in secret, people who were not trying to believe harder, but trying to see clearly. They were called Gnostics. And the difference matters. They were not centered on faith the way later systems were. They were centered on Gnosis, direct knowing, inner recognition, the experience that truth is not something handed down to you by an approved authority. Truth is something buried in you, under fear, noise, conditioning, shame, and all the layers that keep a person cut off from what they already are. And what these people taught was so disruptive, it had to be buried. Because they did not say, this world was the flawless creation of the highest God. They said the visible world was shaped by the demiurge, a false god, a lower ruler, a builder so cut off from the true source that it mistook itself for the source. At first it sounds insane. Then reality starts lining up around it. The cruelty, the fracture, the confusion, the control. A broken world suddenly starts looking exactly like the work of a broken ruler. The Gnostics looked at decay, domination, suffering, vanity, predation, and the constant pressure of limitation and said, no, this is not the clean signature of the highest divine fullness. This is the output of a distorted maker trapped in ignorance and convinced of its own supremacy. Matter came through distortion. Flesh came through distortion. Separation came through distortion. This world is not neutral, it is bent. The true source, the monad, exists beyond all of that, beyond image, beyond language, beyond division, beyond the machinery of power, beyond the whole game of ruler and ruled, whole, silent, untouched. And from that fullness comes the pleroma, the total field of divine completeness, a living fullness expressed through aeons, divine emanations moving in harmony. That is where the deepest part of you belongs. Not here, not in this logic, not in this prison, not in this false center. And that is why this teaching lands so hard in people who have always felt strangely out of place here. The Gnostics said, there is a divine spark inside the human being, a fragment of that higher fullness, buried in matter, sealed under forgetfulness, trapped in a world that trains you to identify with the wrong thing. So that feeling you may have had your whole life, that low, unexplainable sense that you are here but not fully from here, that you can function in this world but never fully trust it, that some deep part of you kept saying, this cannot be the whole story. That feeling is not random. It is not just late-night overthinking. It is not just your nervous system being dramatic at 2:13 a.m. because your room is dark and your brain picked the worst possible hour to interrogate every belief you inherited. That feeling is memory coming back online. The signal was never gone. You were just buried under noise. And this is where the archons come in. In the old texts, the archons are rulers, gatekeepers, forces of limitation, powers that maintain the prison and keep the soul trapped below the higher realms. But once you translate that out of ancient symbolic language, it gets uncomfortably familiar. Archonic force looks like systems, algorithms, institutions, manufactured urgency, endless distraction. Anything that keeps you turned outward is part of the mechanism. Whatever keeps you turned outward owns part of your attention. Its job is simple: keep the divine spark asleep, keep you busy, keep you guilty, keep you unfinished. A false world always trains people to mistake management for truth. That is why so much of modern life feels spiritually hostile without looking obviously evil. It does not need horns. It just needs your attention. It just needs you exhausted enough to forget yourself. It just needs you asking external structures to tell you who you are. And according to the Gnostic view, that mechanism is not accidental. It is the structure of the prison itself. Then the transmission gets stranger. Awakening was never described as random either. It was timed, built into cycles, scheduled into the architecture. The ancient schools did not see time as a straight line marching forward. They saw living cycles, recurring fields, shifts in consciousness, epochs where different truths become harder or easier to perceive. Aeons were not just stretches of time, they were currents of reality. And when certain cycles converged, concealment weakened, not truth beginning. Concealment weakening. 2026 is not when truth begins. It is when concealment weakens. That is the claim. And the first cycle tied to that threshold is Sophia, wisdom, the eon, whose fall becomes one of the central dramas in Gnostic cosmology. In the myth, Sophia reaches toward the unknowable source out of order, without her proper counterpart, and from that rupture comes imbalance, then distortion, then the birth of the demiurge. The details vary across texts, but the structure is consistent. A misalignment in divine order produces a fractured creation, and that matters because Sophia is not just a figure in the text. She is the wound in consciousness itself. She is the pattern of divine memory falling into projection. Sophia is what happens when divine longing falls into misalignment. It sounds abstract until it starts describing your life. How many people spend years building a false life from a false center, reaching, grabbing, performing, chasing identities that do not fit, waking up one day in a structure they helped build and realizing it feels dead. That is not just psychology, It mirrors the myth. Sophia's fall is cosmic, but it is also intimate. It is the pattern of awareness reaching outside its right order and ending up trapped in its own image. But the transmission does not end with the fall. That is the part people miss. Return is built into the structure too. Restoration is not an afterthought. Sophia rises, wisdom restores. And in texts associated with streams like Pistis, Sophia, and the Gospel of the Egyptians, that cycle of descent and return is tied to larger periods of cosmic timing, with 2026 appearing not as a random date, but as a point of convergence, a completion pressure, a moment when the return current becomes easier to feel. And then there is the second cycle, the one tied to the 7 archons, the planetary rulers, the layered structure of limitation that stands between the soul and the higher octave, the Ogdoad, the realm beyond the sevenfold prison, where Gnosis becomes possible in a different way. Each archon corresponds to a sphere, a veil, a structure of forgetfulness. The old esoteric schools watched the heavens like a clock, because to them, the heavens were not decoration. They were pattern. Literal or symbolic, the point does not change. The old schools read the heavens as a clock, and the configuration linked to 2026 centers on a loosening pattern involving Saturn and Jupiter, the constrictor and the opener, the tester and the expander, forming a relation read by some streams as a weakening in the governing veils. You do not have to imagine giant cosmic bureaucrats stamping papers in the sky for the meaning to land. The point is that the structure of control is not seen as permanent. It has rhythms, it has pressure points, it has moments where the lock weakens. Then comes the third cycle, the shift in collective consciousness itself. Roughly every 2,000 years, humanity moves through a dominant symbolic age. Aries gave a world shaped by war, force, kingship, and conquest. Pisces gave the age of martyrdom, sacrifice, suffering, redemption, the mystic, and the savior. Aquarius is different. Aquarius pours out. It reveals. It circulates hidden knowledge. It destabilizes old authorities. It forces buried things into visibility, not the cheesy wallpaper version. Not glitter, vibes, and pseudo-enlightenment merch. The real thing. Disclosure, exposure, repatterning. A civilizational shift in how people understand authority, truth, salvation, identity, and where liberation actually comes from. Put the three together: Sophia's return, the loosening of archonic control, and the collective shift into Aquarius, and 2026 appears as a threshold, not the collapse of matter, not the final scene, the thinning point, the place where the membrane gets weaker, the place where more people can feel what has always been there. And that matters because awakening never happens in the abstract. It happens in people, in bodies, in nervous systems, in attention, in private moments, in the sudden realization that what you thought was safety was actually sedation. This is where the text stops being interesting and starts becoming dangerous. Because once you pull it out of ancient cosmology and drop it into daily life, it starts describing everything. You start noticing how much of modern existence is engineered to fracture attention and keep people externally governed. You start seeing how fear is amplified because frightened people are easier to steer. How institutions demand obedience while quietly contradicting themselves. How economic systems burn through human life and call it success. How media cycles keep people outraged, exhausted, and too flooded to think. How even spirituality gets turned into performance. How the whole thing keeps asking you to look outward, 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 while the one thing that could break the spell is inward recognition. That is archonic logic in plain clothes, not dramatic, not theatrical, efficient, familiar. And this is why Gnosis matters. Gnosis is not belief. It is not affiliation. It is not repeating the right mystical vocabulary like a guy who read 3 forbidden PDFs and now thinks he's an oracle. Gnosis is recognition, the divine spark realizing itself. The moment something in you says, "I knew this was false before I had language for why," shock breaks the spell, search breaks the map, integration breaks the old self. That is usually how it starts. First, shock, the realization that consensus reality is not neutral, that what you were told was truth was often management. Then search. You leave the approved lanes. You start reading strange texts, Gnostic scriptures, hermetic fragments, symbol systems, forgotten cosmologies. Half of it is confusing, some of it makes you roll your eyes. Then one line hits, and suddenly your whole internal architecture shifts by 2 degrees, which sounds small until your entire life starts bending around it. Then integration. And this is where most people stall. Because collecting concepts is easy, embodying them is brutal. You can memorize every aeon, every sphere, every mythic structure, and still live from a false center. Real Gnosis forces you to notice where the prison still lives in you, where you still perform, where you still betray yourself for approval, where you still want external rescue because it feels easier than inner responsibility. External rescue is the favorite religion of a sleeping mind. That is one of the biggest reversals in the whole Gnostic path. Salvation is not external, it never was. No institution can hand it to you. No authority can certify it. No savior can do the recognition for you. A threshold does not save you, it exposes you. So this is not about a magical date descending from the sky to fix people who refuse to look inward. It is about a field condition becoming more favorable for awakening, a window, a pressure shift, a moment where the signal gets louder and the noise loses some of its grip. And when that happens, cracks appear. Systems built on lies start shaking. Economic systems that treat people like fuel. Political systems that market freedom while expanding control. Religious systems that preach purity while hiding corruption. Media systems that monetize confusion. None of it can hold forever. And when those structures weaken, most people will rush toward the next external authority, a new ideology, a new leader, a new approved script, a new handler wearing a different face. Sleep does not mind costume changes, but some people will move the other way, inward, toward remembrance. Those are the people this message is for. Not everyone, never everyone. Only the ones whose spark reacts before their mind can explain why. And if you've ever said one honest thing and watched the room turn cold, you already know what I mean. A lot of you already know that feeling. You told one honest truth and the room turned hostile. That is what happens when sleep feels threatened. Let me ask you something in the middle of this, and I don't want the polished answer. I want the real one. What part of this has been following you in your actual life? Not as an idea, as an experience. Was it the feeling that the world itself is off, the pressure of being managed, the homesickness you could never explain, the suspicion that most of what passes for normal is just well-decorated captivity? Or is it the part that makes you uncomfortable because it sounds too close to your own life to dismiss? Say it plainly. What in this catches in you and refuses to let go? Because that is where the transmission stops being content and becomes personal. And the work, if we're being real, does not start in 2026. It starts now. Cultivate silence, real silence. Not just turning off noise for 5 minutes while checking your phone every 30 seconds like your soul is on airplane mode. I mean the kind of silence where you start hearing what remains when stimulation drops. Study the symbols, not to collect them like occult trading cards, but to learn the language of memory. Practice discernment, hard, because control got sophisticated. It does not always show up as force. Sometimes it shows up as care, as certainty, as moral pressure, as expert consensus, as the soft voice that says, "Just let us think for you." Learn the feel of what liberates and what binds. Learn the difference in your body and find the others who are remembering, not to build another hierarchy, not to start another performance, to break the isolation spell. Because isolation is one of control's cleanest weapons. When people feel alone in what they are sensing, they doubt their own perception. When they realize others have felt the same fracture, the same ache, the same refusal to fully kneel to the script, something steadies, something clarifies. And there is another layer here that may be the most unsettling one of all. The prison is not just outside, it reproduces itself inside, in the voice that says, "Stay small, don't risk clarity. Don't question too far. Don't outgrow the identity that kept you acceptable. Don't leave the old false self, because at least it is familiar." The demiurge is not only cosmic, it becomes psychological, a counterfeit center, an inner ruler, a structure inside the mind that imitates authority and keeps consciousness trapped in loops of fear, shame, passivity, and false duty. That means awakening is not reading weird ancient texts and nodding like you cracked the code. It is catching the prison logic as it tries to rebuild itself in your habits, your relationships, your compulsions, your self-betrayals, your addictions to approval, your loyalty to what harms you simply because it is known. And that is exactly why this matters in the present. Look around. People are over-informed and under-connected, constantly stimulated and deeply numb, publicly expressive and privately hollowed out. Everyone has content. Almost nobody has center. You can feel it in the air. Something is ending, but most people do not know what to call it, so they medicate it, politicize it, optimize it, meme it to death, or drown it in more distraction. But underneath all of that, the old spell is weakening. The official story about what a human being is and where authority comes from is not holding the way it used to. And when that happens, two things become possible at once: deeper manipulation or genuine remembrance, sleep or remembrance, control or alignment. That is the fork. That is the pressure. The scary part is not fantasy movie evil. It is how normal the prison feels, how ordinary it is to live disconnected from your own spark and call that adulthood. How easy it is to confuse adaptation with truth. How easy it is to become functional inside a lie and mistake that for health. In a world like this, Remembering that the deepest authority was never external is not just spiritual, it is radical. So this is the real prophecy. Not that a date saves you, that a threshold exposes you. It reveals what in you still serves sleep and what in you is ready to remember. 2026 does not create the signal. It removes enough noise for you to hear it. The signal is not coming later. Later is one of the oldest lies. Subscribe if you know this is already yours. Not because a channel saves anyone, it doesn't, but because some transmissions are not meant to be heard once and left behind. And before this closes, I want to hear from the part of you that does not speak in public very often. What cracked the script for you? What moment made the world feel thinner, stranger, less convincing? What truth did you feel before you could explain it? What part of you has been trying to remember under all the noise? Say it in your own words. Not agreement, not performance. Recognition. Maybe that homesickness was never irrational. Maybe it was recognition. Maybe the pleroma has been pulling on you your whole life. 2026 is not the end. It is the point where the whisper stops sounding like a whisper. The call is already here. The question is whether you will recognize it before the world teaches you to numb it again. Whether you remember, or go back to sleep. Go back to sleep.